The Young and the Restless spoilers update for Tuesday, March 18, reveals that Claire Newman's jealousy will flare while Summer Newman takes advantage. Meanwhile, Audra Charles will land in a tight spot, so let's talk about what's ahead in Genoa City. At the coffee house, Summer will catch up with Kyle Abbott, who'll be relieved over the news that Phyllis Summers is safe after all the abduction drama. Of course, Summer will probably keep using the situation to pull Kyle closer. Since Phyllis and Sharon Newman's captor remains on the loose, Summer may point that out and worry about what the maniac might do next. That's a legitimate concern, but Summer may mostly be working to score more of Kyle's comfort. It's easy to imagine Claire walking in on another warm embrace when she arrives at Crimson Lights. It looks like Claire will interrupt Summer and Kyle's conversation, so her jealousy should flare in the process. Although Claire will be glad Phyllis is okay, she may be annoyed to find that Summer is still using this ordeal to gain Kyle's sympathy. As for Victor Newman, Y&R spoilers say he'll push Kyle to see a difficult reality. Victor might warn Kyle that he's doomed to deal with cousin clashing if he insists on dating Claire while co-parenting with Summer. Kyle is linked to Summer for life through Harrison Abbott, so it's not like he can cut her out of the picture. Claire's insecurities are only going to get worse if Kyle can't find a way to establish more boundaries. Across town, Lily Winters will struggle to figure out Damian Kane's true motives. Damian may face more questions as Lily tries to nail down his agenda and whether he poses a threat to her family. Over with Holden Novak, he'll put Audra in a tight spot with his pushy behavior. Audra is open to friendship with Holden, but that's mostly because she thinks she can use him as a source for more Damian information. Nate Hastings approves of Audra keeping Holden as a pal, but what happens if Holden tries to step out of the friend zone? Audra may have to put Holden in his place if he dives in for a smooch or makes another inappropriate move. Despite Holden's lingering feelings for Audra, she may make a prediction about her bright future with Nate and warn her former flame to dial things down. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Audra will have a hard time navigating all this, so stay tuned for updates on her next meeting with Holden. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Pulse Canvas. It's me, Julie here. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Keep watching, so let's dive into today's video. The Young and the Restless spoilers tease a sinister switcheroo may have happened since Martin and Alan Laurent wrestled and fell off that balcony, killing one. But instead of Martin switching clothes with Alan while midair on the way down, could something else have happened? Did Alan become Martin in a grief-induced psychosis? Viewers will recall when Ashley Abbott suffered a bout of dissociative identity disorder, or did. Alan treated Ashley for a while, but then the problem of two or more Ashleys turned into a problem of two Allens when Martin kidnapped Alan and started impersonating him. Real Alan mentioned that he had a twin, presumably he'd committed Martin, trying to help him, and Martin was jealous, obsessed with psychology and proving he was the better of the two twins. Previously, when talking to Ashley about events that had happened in Paris, while dealing with what she thought was Tucker McCall-induced trauma, she mentioned something to Alan. At the time, Alan didn't recall the conversation and suggested she'd met Martin, who he didn't realize was out in society. Martin wreaked havoc as fake Alan, and he struck at the bar where Ashley thought she'd met with Alan previously, which is where he kidnapped Alan. But that didn't last long, as Alan, locked up in the bathroom at the bar, made his way free and immediately tracked down Martin and Ashley and confronted Martin. Martin had taken Ashley hostage and Alan was determined to free her, and the two argued. Alan urged Martin to get help, but Martin rejected the idea and instead lashed out at Alan, leading both brothers to tumble over the balcony. Alan emerged with a broken arm, while Martin tragically perished upon impact. Alan regretted not being able to help Martin. Though overwhelmed by grief for his brother, Alan also felt a sense of relief that Martin could no longer pose a threat to anyone. It was a heavy burden for Alan to bear, knowing he had to leave Martin's body unattended in the street until it could be taken away. Ashley remained in Paris to receive treatment, and finally she was free of her own trauma that caused her personality to split. Tracy Abbott also stayed in Paris. Fast forwarding to recently, Alan and Tracy just got engaged, and supposedly Alan has moved past the grief over his brother. But it was recently discovered he'd kidnapped Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman, subjecting them to a bizarre psychological experiment in an abandoned mental facility. Martin couldn't have switched with Alan Madare. Going back to that fateful night in Paris when Alan and Martin struggled, Martin having been killed, it's been theorized somehow Martin took over and Alan was killed. But he couldn't have changed clothes with his twin Madare on the way down to the ground. And there's no evidence that the clothes switch happened prior to the fall. With Alan's deep grief and regret, he couldn't have least stayed with Martin's body until it was taken away, and regretting he couldn't reach Martin and help him, his own psyche split. It has been Alan all along who's been dating Tracy, and it's been Alan who kidnapped Sharon and Phyllis, but in his fractured mind, he's also become Martin. His mind found a way of denial that has kept his brother alive, in a sense, becoming an alter of Alan's. The Young and the Restless spoilers for the week of March 17-21 implies some explosive bombshells on the horizon. As fans know, Genoa City can be a revolving door where characters come and go, only to return again. Learn more about the casting changes that will take place over the next 5 days by reading below. Christine Blair's return. Christine Blair is set to return to the land of Genoa City this coming June. The last time fans saw the bug in town was in January of this year when she rang in 2025 with her rockstar boyfriend, Danny Romalotti. The bold and the beautiful fans will see Cricket a lot sooner, though. She is slated to appear on the CBS sister show for a storyline that takes place between April 24 and April 28. Welcome to Genoa City, Billy Flynn. In a major casting shocker, Days of Our Lives' Billy Flynn is exiting Salem and heading to Genoa City. The actor has been cast in a new role set to debut this spring. No more information has been provided, so fans need to continue to stay tuned to this site for more details. Meanwhile, Days of Our Lives fans can expect to see Billy continue on as Chad until 2026, due to the soap's filming schedule that shoots several months in advance. Super couple storyline. While fans don't see Tracy Abbott and her boyfriend Alan Laurent all too often, they are set for a major storyline and will dominate the Young and the Restless canvas during the week of March 17-21. As fans know, Alan isn't really Alan, but rather seemingly his evil twin, Martin Laurent. Plus, he's the one behind Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman's recent kidnapping. Is Tracy in danger? Will anyone figure out who's behind this? Fans will have to tune in to find out. Are you excited about the week of March 17-21? Share your thoughts below. Watch the CBS soap daily to catch all the drama in GC, and visit this site often for the most up-to-date Young and the Restless news and spoilers. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that Billy Abbott and Phyllis Summers' cheating countdown may be on. Is Sally Spectra doomed to face the familiar sting of betrayal? Y and R fans will recall how Adam took Chelsea Lawson to bed in Baltimore and tried to gaslight Sally in the aftermath. Sally could tell something was off and repeatedly pushed Adam to confess that he slept with Chelsea. Unfortunately, Adam lied to Sally instead and worked to convince her that she had it all wrong. Of course, that plan didn't work out very well since the truth came out anyway, and now Adam is back together with Chelsea while Sally's moving on with Billy. Although Sally kept her guard up with Billy in the beginning, it feels like she's falling pretty hard for him now. Sally could no doubt see a bright future together, but will Billy's growing bond with Phyllis get in the way? Billy's concern for Phyllis was evident during the kidnapping storyline, so Sally could see for herself how much he still cares about her. Now that Phyllis is free and ready to jump into work at Abbott Communications, there will be more opportunities for Billy to connect with her. In fact, one of those opportunities comes in the March 17 episode when Billy asks Phyllis to forgive him for thinking the worst of her and leaving her off the press release. Phyllis does forgive Billy and hugs him for saving her life, so some close moments are happening for these exes. Phyllis' abduction saga could serve as a turning point in her relationship with Billy, especially since she hasn't forgotten about that romantic dream she had before she was snatched. Between that dream and Billy playing the hero recently, Phyllis has great reasons to latch onto her former flame as a life raft right now. After the way things have spiraled out of control for Phyllis lately, she'll be drawn to Billy's comfort and will view him as something familiar she can cling to. The more time Billy and Phyllis spend together working on Abbott Communications, the closer they're going to get. Will that mean bad news for Sally in the end? Will Billy cheat on Sally and leave her feeling deeply betrayed? Billy might hit the sheets with Phyllis, or at least share a kiss with her. Sally may face déjà vu if she once again finds herself becoming the odd woman out while her man cheats with an ex. In other words, Billy's actions could serve as a big reminder of what Adam did and leave Sally struggling with more heartbreak. The young and the restless spoilers say Billy may have a hard time keeping any promises and predictions he makes to Sally, so stay tuned for updates on any romantic setbacks. The young and the restless spoilers reveal that Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman could still be in danger from their kidnapper. Alan/Martin Laurent knows that there was a security breach at the clinic where he was keeping Phyllis and Sharon. Are they still in danger from him after their escape? Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman were kidnapped for a reason. Phyllis and Sharon were not just randomly kidnapped. These ladies were taken for a reason. The fact that Nick Newman helped to save them isn't going to settle well. Alan hasn't planned for them to get out at all. The gas was even trigged to go off at a certain time to kill both of them. Now that the experiment is done, Alan's phone has alerted Tracy Abbott to a problem. Alan and Tracy just got engaged before she saw the messages on the phone. Alan's excuses aren't making a great deal of sense. Tracy knows that Alan's phone doesn't have some sort of a virus or malware. Alan Laurent drugged these ladies before. Phyllis and Sharon were both drugged to get them to the clinic. Alan has also poisoned both of the ladies while they were at the clinic. It isn't safe for these two to stay in town, because they would be sitting ducks once again. How did Alan even get to them on Valentine's Day? Would Alan go after them once again? Alan has dealt with this with his brother for years. Actually, Martin could be posing as Alan. Whichever one of the men are around, they have no idea what he looks like, so he could decide to befriend them and take them right back to where he has been holding them. Alan could also have other places to stash these two. Will Tracy get caught in the middle of this kidnapping mess? Nick Newman is trying to send Sharon Newman out of town. Nick seems to agree that it is a good idea for Sharon to go out of town. However, Nick doesn't know who kidnapped Sharon. How do Nick and Sharon not realize that she could be followed? If Alan is going to go to these lengths, does he really not believe he would come back? Alan had to be following her for some time already. These same issues applied to Phyllis as well. How did Alan know about their rift? Could Martin have been locked up with Sharon or Phyllis at one time? Someone needs to consider all of this before sending either lady on a vacation. If they don't see them missing in Genoa City, how will they find them when they are out of town? Last Friday, the young and the restless viewers watched as Phyllis and Sharon were finally rescued from the Havner psychiatric facility, where they had been held captive for far too long. With guns drawn, Chance led the way until Nick kicked the door in and scooped up Sharon in his arms, as Billy tended to Phyllis. Riddles and pleas for help have filled the episodes as of late, and in a cliffhanger, Tracy found a cryptic notification on Alan's, cell phone that alerted that there had been a security breach at the clinic, and that precautions had been enacted. It wasn't long ago when Alan was revealed to be behind the kidnapping, and many have suspected that he is in fact his evil twin Martin. Whatever the case, Michelle Stafford sent a special message to everyone involved in the storyline and shared a video along with it. "So that's a wrap of that story," she stated. "These are my beautiful friends that I love so much and get to work with every day." Earlier this month, in Soaps.com's exclusive interview with Stafford and Sharon Case, over talk of the finale scene, the latter informed they had to pull out their best acting chops. And Stafford, well, she didn't hold back and stated, "Oh, can we just say what it is? Sharon and I did that mother of asterisk in one take. We give major props to the actresses. Not only did we get to witness the emotional roller coaster that this storyline took us on, watching it feature two of daytime's biggest on-again/off-again enemies made it all the more exciting. And we can bet that there's more ahead where that came from." The Young and the Restless spoilers update for reveals that Claire Newman's jealousy will flare while Summer Newman takes advantage. Meanwhile, Audra Charles will land in a tight spot. So let's talk about what's ahead in Genoa City. At the coffee house, Summer will catch up with Kyle Abbott, who'll be relieved over the news that Phyllis Summers is safe after all the abduction drama. Of course, Summer will probably keep using the situation to pull Kyle closer. Since Phyllis and Sharon Newman's captor remains on the loose, Summer may point that out and worry about what the maniac might do next. That's a legitimate concern, but Summer may mostly be working to score more of Kyle's comfort. It's easy to imagine Claire walking in on another warm embrace when she arrives at Crimson Lights. It looks like Claire will interrupt Summer and Kyle's conversation, so her jealousy should flare in the process. Although Claire will be glad Phyllis is okay, she may be annoyed to find that Summer is still using this ordeal to gain Kyle's sympathy. As for Victor Newman, Y and R spoilers say he'll push Kyle to see a difficult reality. Victor might warn Kyle that he's doomed to deal with cousin clashing if he insists on dating Claire while co-parenting with Summer. Kyle is linked to Summer for life through Harrison Abbott, so it's not like he can cut her out of the picture. Claire's insecurities are only going to get worse if Kyle can't find a way to establish more boundaries. Across town, Lily Winters will struggle to figure out Damian Kane's true motives. Damian may face more questions as Lily tries to nail down his agenda, and whether he poses a threat to her family. Over with Holden Novak, he'll put Audra in a tight spot with his pushy behavior. Audra is open to friendship with Holden, but that's mostly because she thinks she can use him as a source for more Damian information. Nate Hastings approves of Audra keeping Holden as a pal, but what happens if Holden tries to step out of the friend zone? Audra may have to put Holden in his place if he dives in for a smooch or makes another inappropriate move. Despite Holden's lingering feelings for Audra, she may make a prediction about her bright future with Nate and warn her former flame to dial things down. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Audra will have a hard time navigating all this, so stay tuned for updates on her next meeting with Holden. Alan's life had always been a chaotic blend of internal turmoil and unpredictable bursts of aggression. Known to some as Martin, a name he long ago adopted as a disguise for his darker impulses, Alan's condition had worsened over time. His past was marred by a history of mental illness, a legacy that festered beneath the surface, twisting his perceptions and distorting his reality. When faced with overwhelming pressure, Alan would retreat into the shadows of his mind, a silent predator waiting for the next opportunity to inflict pain. In his isolated apartment in a nondescript suburb, Alan's fragile sanity teetered on the edge. He had spent countless nights battling inner demons, unable to reconcile the duality of his existence. The chaos inside him was not always visible to the outside world, but those who had known him, if only for a moment, felt an inexplicable chill at the mention of his name. Whispers among acquaintances spoke of his eerie transformation when stress mounted, as though the familiar persona dissolved into something far more menacing. Tracy was the next unwitting victim in this tragic spiral, a gentle soul with an earnest desire to help. She had tried repeatedly to reach out to Alan, sensing the storm that brewed within him. She believed that if she could just offer him a word of reason, a moment of solace, perhaps he would choose a different path. Tracy's advice was simple yet heartfelt. "Alan, please try to remain calm. Let's not do anything we'll regret later." However, Alan's distorted mind misinterpreted her concern as a ploy to have him locked away, imprisoned by a system that could never truly understand the depth of his suffering. That fateful evening, the tension in the cramped living room was palpable. Rain drummed relentlessly against the window panes, mirroring the tempest in Alan's heart. Tracy, with her soft voice and gentle demeanor, attempted once more to calm him down. "Alan, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because I care. You need to trust me," she pleaded, her eyes searching his face for any sign of lucidity. But Alan was beyond reasoning. In his troubled mind, her words became twisted echoes, confirming his worst fears. "You want to send me to jail, don't you?" he hissed, his voice low and trembling with a mix of paranoia and rage. The room, once filled with the possibility of redemption, now pulsed with imminent danger. Their argument escalated rapidly. With each word exchanged, the distance between sanity and madness narrowed, until it snapped under the weight of Alan's spiraling emotions. In a moment of uncontrollable fury, Alan lunged forward. The transformation was swift and horrifying. With an instinct born of years of suppressed anger and pain, Alan's hands found Tracy's throat. In that instant, time seemed to freeze, the sound of her soft protests, the echo of her heartbeat, and the sudden silence as life slipped away. Tracy's struggle was brief and tragic. The warmth of her life was extinguished before it could fully bloom, leaving behind an emptiness that would forever haunt the corridors of memory. The room, once a space of possibility, now bore the scars of violence and despair. Tracy lay lifeless, her eyes reflecting the shock and pain of her final moments. Realization hit Alan with the force of a tidal wave. His mind, still clouded by the haze of adrenaline and panic, could not immediately process the enormity of what had transpired. In the aftermath of the act, a primal fear seized him. This was not the resolution he had imagined when he sought solace in isolation. This was a descent into irrevocable darkness. Overwhelmed by the gravity of his actions, Alan bolted from the apartment. His heart pounded as he sprinted through rain-soaked streets, driven by the desperate desire to escape the unfolding nightmare. His plan was to return to Paris, a city that, in his mind, symbolized a life before the madness took hold. The allure of its vibrant streets and whispered promises of normalcy provided a stark contrast to the chaos he had left behind. But as he ran, every step was haunted by the specter of his deed, and every raindrop on his face reminded him of the irreversible moment of violence. Meanwhile, the silence that followed Tracy's death was shattered by the arrival of Jack and Diane. They had come to check on her after sensing something amiss, a foreboding feeling that had grown over the past few days. Their eyes widened in horror as they beheld the scene of devastation. Tracy's lifeless form lay in stark contrast to the otherwise ordinary setting of the apartment, a chilling testament to the brutal confrontation that had taken place. Jack's voice trembled as he tried to piece together the fragments of the unspeakable act. This can't be happening. Who would do such a thing? Diane's face turned pale as the realization dawned on them. They had always suspected Alan harbored a darker nature, a dangerous side that lurked behind a veneer of normality. Yet nothing had prepared them for the cold reality. Tracy Abbott's journey. Will she finally find happiness? Tracy Abbott has been a beloved figure in the young and the restless for decades, known for her resilience, kindness, and enduring hope for love. However, happiness has often slipped through her fingers. As Genoa City's drama continues to unfold, the question remains, will Tracy finally get the love story she deserves? A new chapter for Tracy Abbott. Recent developments suggest that Tracy is stepping into an exciting new phase of her life. After years of focusing on her career and family, it seems love is knocking on her door again. While her past relationships have been filled with heartbreak, Tracy has never given up on the idea of finding true companionship. But will this new romance bring the happiness she's been waiting for, or will history repeat itself? Fans are eager to see Tracy in a relationship that truly honors her kind-hearted nature and strength. Family tensions and unexpected challenges. As Tracy navigates this new chapter, her family dynamics remain a significant factor. The Abbotts have always been a tight-knit yet complicated family, and with ongoing tensions between Jack, Ashley, and other members, Tracy may find herself caught in the middle once again. Could family drama overshadow her personal happiness? Or will she finally step out of the shadows and claim a future that's truly her own? Tracy's future in Genoa City. Beyond romance, Tracy's role in Genoa City remains as important as ever. Her wisdom and unwavering support for those around her make her a cornerstone of the Abbott family. But will she finally prioritize herself and chase after what she really wants? No matter what twists and turns come her way, one thing is certain, Tracy Abbott's story is far from over. Fans will be watching closely to see if this chapter brings long overdue happiness or yet another heartbreaking turn. Stay tuned to The Young and the Restless to see what's next for Tracy Abbott. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Katie's resentment had reached a fever pitch. She was determined to expose Claire as an imposter, convinced that Claire didn't belong in the Newman family. Fueled by her anger and jealousy, Katie devised a plan to prove her suspicions. One evening, when Claire was brushing her hair in the bathroom, Katie sneaked in and grabbed a strand of her hair from the brush. With a sense of grim satisfaction, she pocketed the hair and set her plan in motion. Katie knew about DNA testing from watching crime shows and hearing adults talk. She was smart enough to figure out how to get the sample tested without alerting anyone. She carefully packaged the hair strand and sent it off to a private lab, eagerly awaiting the results that would vindicate her. Meanwhile, Victoria remained blissfully unaware of Katie's actions. She had always treated Claire as her daughter, loving her unconditionally regardless of biological ties. The mere thought of a DNA test terrified Victoria. She didn't want to risk losing Claire, who had become an integral part of her life and family. A few weeks later, the results came back. Katie, brimming with pride and a sense of triumph, couldn't wait to share the news. She burst into the living room where Victoria, Claire, and Victor were gathered, clutching the envelope. "Mom, Grandpa, look what I have," Katie announced, her voice filled with excitement. "I've got the results of a DNA test. It's about Claire." Victoria's heart sank. "Katie, what have you done?" she asked, her voice shaking. Katie ignored her mother's distress and tore open the envelope, pulling out the results. "Claire isn't your daughter, Mom. She's not a Newman. She doesn't belong here." The room fell into stunned silence. Claire's face turned pale, her eyes welling up with tears. Victor's expression darkened, and Nikki, who had just walked in, looked shocked and angry. "What is the meaning of this?" Victor demanded, snatching the paper from Katie's hands. He scanned the results, his face hardening with each passing second. "This can't be true." Victoria, fighting back tears, took the paper from her father. Her hands trembled as she read the damning evidence. Claire wasn't her biological daughter. But despite the test results, Victoria's feelings for Claire hadn't changed. She looked at Claire, who stood frozen in place, and her heart broke for the young girl she had come to love as her own. "Katie, why did you do this?" Victoria asked, her voice thick with emotion. Katie's eyes flashed with defiance. "Because she's not one of us, Mom. She's been lying to us all this time. She's an outsider. Claire, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. I never lied about who I am. I didn't know that I wasn't your daughter, Victoria. But it doesn't change how I feel about you. You've always been my mother. Victoria walked over to Claire and wrapped her arms around her. You are my daughter, Claire. No piece of paper will ever change that. Victor and Nikki exchanged a troubled glance. Victor cleared his throat. Victoria, this is a serious matter. We can't just ignore it. Claire, if you're not Victoria's daughter, who are you? Where do you come from? Claire shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. I've always thought you were my family. Victor's face hardened. We need to get to the bottom of this. We can't have someone in the family who doesn't belong. Nikki, trying to soften the blow, added, It's not that we don't care about you, Claire, but we need to understand what's going on. Katie, feeling vindicated, smirked. See, I told you she didn't belong here. Victoria shot her daughter a stern look. Katie, enough. This is not a game. We're talking about people's lives here. The tension in the room was palpable. Victor and Nikki's stance was clear. They couldn't accept Claire without knowing her true origins. Victoria was torn between her love for Claire and the harsh reality presented by the DNA test. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the Newman household was tense and uneasy. Victor ordered a thorough investigation into Claire's background, determined to uncover the truth. Claire, feeling more isolated than ever, withdrew into herself, haunted by the possibility that she might lose the only family she had ever known. Victoria struggled to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the strain was evident. She couldn't bear the thought of losing Claire, yet she understood the need for answers. The investigation dragged on, each day bringing new anxieties and uncertainties. Finally, the private investigator Victor had hired returned with shocking news. Claire's biological parents had been located. It turned out that Claire had been switched at birth in a hospital mix-up. Her real parents, the Robinsons, had been searching for her ever since they discovered the mistake years ago. Jill Abbott's return to Genoa City. A power struggle unfolds. Genoa City had always been a battlefield for power, legacy, and ambition, but few could shake things up quite like Jill Abbott. When she walked back into town, her presence alone sent shockwaves through the corporate world and left many wondering what storm she was about to bring. Her sudden return was far from a simple visit. There was business to handle, family matters to sort out, and old enemies waiting in the shadows. Jill had been keeping a close eye on Chancellor Winters from a distance, but recent events had forced her to step in before everything spiraled out of control. Her son, Billy Abbott, had made a bold move by using her voting shares to remove co-CEO Lily Winters from her position. It was a decision he had justified as being in the best interest of the company, but Jill wasn't so sure. Billy's impulsive nature had often led him into trouble, and she feared this might be another one of those reckless moves that would backfire. But Billy's decision was only the tip of the iceberg. Victor Newman had been circling Chancellor Winters like a shark smelling blood in the water. He saw an opportunity to seize control amid the internal chaos and had made strategic moves to position himself as the ultimate winner. Promises had been made, alliances were shifting, and Victor's involvement made Jill even more determined to take back the reins before he tightened his grip on her family's legacy. As Jill settled back into town, she quickly realized that the troubles at Chancellor Winters weren't the only problems waiting for her. A name from her past had resurfaced, M. Johnson. For years, M had been the trusted Abbott housekeeper, but Jill had never seen her as just that. She had always believed M was more than just an employee in the Abbott household. She was an influential presence, someone who had always been far too involved in John Abbott's life for Jill's liking. Their rivalry had simmered for decades, but Jill had no idea that M had been quietly working behind the scenes to claim her own stake in Chancellor Winters. The discovery that M had invested in the company without her knowledge sent Jill into a rage. It wasn't just about business, it was personal. M had once been a thorn in her side, and now she was back, positioning herself as a power player in a company Jill had worked too hard to protect. Was this some long overdue revenge, a power move, or simply a calculated business decision? Whatever the reason, Jill wasn't about to let it slide. Their confrontation was inevitable. When Jill stormed into the Chancellor Winter's offices, Anne was already waiting, exuding the same quiet confidence that had always irritated Jill. The two women exchanged sharp words, their long-standing tension boiling over into a full-blown battle of wills. M made it clear that she wasn't going anywhere, and Jill refused to back down. It was a corporate war, experience versus strategy, history versus ambition. But Jill wasn't just fighting old battles. She also had to deal with the mess Billy had made. She loved her son, but his tendency to jump headfirst into situations without thinking had once again caused problems. She knew his heart was in the right place. He wanted to do what was best for Chancellor, but she also knew that his motivations were often clouded by personal struggles. Sitting Billy down, she tried to reason with him. She warned him about the dangers of getting caught in a war with Victor Newman and the potential consequences of his actions. Jill had spent years in the corporate world and had faced off against Victor more times than she could count. She knew exactly how dangerous he could be when he set his sights on something, and right now, that something was their company. Billy listened, but whether he would actually take his mother's advice remained to be seen. Jill had learned long ago that Billy was his own worst enemy, and sometimes, no amount of wisdom or warnings could keep him from making his own mistakes. Meanwhile, Jill had to navigate the shifting power dynamics between the Newmans, the Abbotts, and Chancellor Winters. Lily, still reeling from her removal, wasn't going to fade into the background quietly. There was also Devin Hamilton, another key player who had his own concerns about how things were being handled. Jill had to assess her allies, identify her enemies, and decide exactly how to play her next move. Jill Abbott was never one to go down without a fight, and this time was no different. She had returned to Genoa City not just to put out fires, but to reclaim her place at the head of the table. She wasn't going to let Victor Newman take what was hers. She wasn't going to let M. Johnson undermine her authority, and she certainly wasn't going to let Billy's reckless decisions jeopardize everything she had built. Young and restless left us breathless with fear for Tracy in the Friday cliffhanger, which is a plus. Here's a look at what happened and what's coming up. Things there are changing. Obviously, there's been a massive shift in Sharon and Phyllis' relationship moving forward, and having them locked up together was an interesting way to get past the animosity over Heather's death, where they would have been otherwise stuck for all eternity. It's still a bit of a stretch that Tracy's man would have gone to these lengths to toy with two women he barely knew, but here's an explainer as to Alan/Martin's motivations. If you were paying attention, you may have realized that the real reason Sharon and Phyllis were kidnapped had nothing to do with a psychopath, but with driving news story moving forward, specifically in their love leaves. The preview teases Sharon fishing to find out if there might be a future with Nick, and while we wouldn't expect Schick to happen overnight, the woman deserves some kind of happiness after all she's been through. Resistance. The scenes surrounding the Chatham reunion have been painful to watch. A significant portion of the audience isn't feeling it, and the writers clearly know this, which is why they're working overtime to try and convince us that they're a couple we should adore. One Genoa City resident after another has been trotted out and forced to behave out of character to support this reunion, including Victor, Victoria, and now Chloe, of all people. If the pairing was working, none of this would be necessary, and quite frankly, it might be more interesting if there was some pushback. Viewers see through these attempts at manipulation, and rather than have the desired effect, it instead creates more resistance. But the biggest issue with Chelsea and Adam's reconciliation, it has isolated and watered down two characters who were among the most intriguing and complex, and made them into whitewashed, reformed bores. This isn't a Hallmark movie, it's soap opera. Where's the melodrama, the sexual tension, the conflict? Imperiled. How agonizing is it knowing that our beloved Tracy, who is besotted and happy beyond words at long last, is about to be utterly devastated. Worse than having her heart shattered, however, is the fact that she's clearly in serious danger. As Phyllis pointed out, Alan/Martin isn't your garden variety psycho. He's a true sicko. He's incredibly diabolical and clever to boot, so there's no telling how long he'll be able to keep up his ruse or how deeply entrenched he'll become in the Abbott world before he's finally exposed. We know he's pushing Tracy to wed quickly, which has to be part of some bigger plot. We also know Eileen Davidson is returning, perhaps as one of Ashley's alters, which means this could get hella messy before all is said and done. Here's hoping.